Hi guys, today I have a very stressed orchid here for you. If you have just acquired an orchid and you think your orchid is very sick, or if you have this orchid for a few weeks, or maybe even a year, and you notice that your orchid starts to show signs of dehydration, although you have watered it, or the flowers are wilting very quickly, very fast, the buds are blasting, or if you have very limp leaves like this one. These are all warning signs. I have recorded a video last week for you talking about common warning sign in Phalaenopsis. So I have here a Phalaenopsis that's very sick. I don't know if very sick. Phalaenopsis is a tough plant though, but it is sick. So all the buds blasted, the flowers wilted very quickly, the leaves are very limpy, and I know that I have root rot inside this tiny pot. So today I will talk to you about how to rescue your Phalaenopsis, what I do with my Phalaenopsis and how I rescue my plants. If that's something that you are interested, please stay here with me, watch this video. Hopefully it will be useful for you and you learn something new. Hit the like button, leave your comments down below. I love sharing information and exchanging knowledge with you guys. So let's start. So this plant is very sad, so it needs to be rescued immediately. As you can see, the leaves are wrinkled, limpy, look, they are papery, they're not plumpy and green. Something else that I noticed, look, the flower spikes are spent, they are gone. I have some aerial roots, which are great. Don't cut the aerial roots, they are great for your plant. I will walk you through what to do when you have a plant like this one. First of all, the first thing that we do with your sick Phalaenopsis, something that is very, very important, it's for you to cut the flower spike. Flower spikes are beautiful, but they serve no purpose in a sick plant because flower spikes, they are the reproducing system, the main reproducing system of your orchid, and the orchid needs to give lots of energy to maintain this flower spike. Because I have an orchid that needs to save energy to produce new leaves and mainly new roots. So when your plant is sick, dehydrated, although you have watered it, and it's still showing signs that's not doing very well. In the case of these Phalaenopsis that we buy from supermarket, sometimes they are kept on this tiny pot for a long time, and they need to be repotted. Because my plant is very, very stressed, and if your plant is showing warning signs like this one, what I would advise you to do is to cut the flower spike. So I have here a pair of pruners, and what I'm gonna do now is just cutting the flower spike from the base. You can go to the base and cut all of the flower spikes. If you're worried I'm doing something wrong here, I'm not. Phalaenopsis, they produce new flower spikes every time we have some temperature differentiation. So when the temperature drops, especially near winter, or if you have a temperature drop in autumn or some sorts of things, you'll notice that some new flower spikes can sprout from the base. I'm only doing that because this plant needs to save energy to produce new roots. First thing for you to do, if you have a very sad plant showing lots of warning signs, or maybe just one warning sign, and you want to rescue and save your Phalaenopsis, is to remove the flower spikes. As you can see here, just removing all of these flower spikes. Here I have many dead roots. All of these roots, they are brown. I'm going to show you, they are papery. So I know that they are not alive anymore, but I will give you some close-ups. After removing your flower spike, the next thing that you have to do with this plant, since I can see it's showing many dehydration signs, and I know that probably the root system is not very healthy, it's to repot your Phalaenopsis. So how we repot our new Phalaenopsis? The first thing that you have to do is to remove your plant, this case was very easy, is to remove your plant from the plastic pot. So you need to squeeze squeeze the plastic pot gently to make sure that all the roots that are attached to the pot, they free themselves. So basically freeing the roots from the plastic. And it's good to squeeze it gently, because then if you have any live roots in here, you may break them if you are not very careful and gentle, and you don't want to break roots, especially in a sick orchid, because roots are vital. So the first thing for you to do is squeeze gently. We remove your plant from the pot, as you can see here, and you need to remove the medium that this orchid came in. The most common medium that the plant with your Phalaenopsis will be potted in is cocoa peat, cocoa fire, bark, that's the little piece of woods, and sometimes sphagnum moss. With bark, if it's the little piece of wood, I would advise you to soak your orchid for around 15 minutes, because then the bark will be much easier to be removed from the roots. In this case, because I can see that's some sort of cocoa material, they will come easily out of the roots. So you have to start removing them, all of the medium, gently, because if you have some live roots inside this pot, we don't want to break them. I can see that almost every root that I have in this orchid, they are probably all dead, or almost all of them are dead. That's why this orchid is very, very sad. I do have 2 other videos for beginners where I talk about Phalaenopsis care, and I show you how to look after your first Phalaenopsis and how to repot it as well. In this case, I will focus on plants that we need to rescue. That's the case of this one. So we remove the whole medium, as you can see here. And then when the whole medium is out of the plant, like in this case, I'm going to give you some close-ups. But after we remove all of the roots, the best thing for you to do is to rinse the root system. So I'm going to go to my sink. I can't film it there because it's a little bit tricky. But what I'm going to do is I will rinse this root, everything, to make sure they are all clean from the old medium. And I'm going to show you that the roots, almost all of them are dead. 1 second. So I went to the sink and I rinsed the root system. And why I'm throwing all of this medium away? Old medium, they are not good for the root system. Usually they can alter the pH of the medium where the roots are. So organic medium, we usually have to change it each 2 years in order to keep your plant healthy. So that's the first thing. That's why I repotted, that's why I remove all of the old medium. So if you have an orchid that came from the supermarket, from a nursery, garden center, I advise you to repot it, because the medium is probably very old for that plant. After I rinsed my plant, what I notice here is that most of these roots are dead, because if I touch on them gently, you can see that they are mushy and papery. The velamen that is inside here is also brown. This is completely dead. So everything that was around, all the tissue is dead, completely dead. So if you press on the root and you notice that it's completely mushy like this one, that means that your root is dead. But if the root green up when you water, or become even a little bit yellowish like this one in here, but it is plump, this is alive, but the rest of these roots, they are completely dead. So when you have dead roots inside your pot, on your orchid, you have to cut them, because otherwise they will degrade inside your new medium and they will spoil the material that your plant is potted in. So the first thing is to get a pair of pruners or scissors that you have sterilized before, because you don't want to pass any disease to your plant. And then you cut all of the dead roots, like so. I knew my plant was very, very dehydrated and was not being hydrated when I water it, so I imagined that most of the roots were dead already. So that's the case. You probably can see it. It's pretty clear. My only concern, and hopefully we don't have any issue with the plant itself, we will repot and everything will be fine. but I'm not sure. So I can see that this part of the tissue is dead. Sorry, people are not seeing anything, but look, probably everything here is completely dead. So as you can see, I cut the whole root system, almost everything. I do have some aerial roots that are vital for my orchid. And also I do have some very tiny roots close to the base that are also very important for my orchid. What I'm gonna do now is I will repot this plant. The first thing that you need, it's a pot. This pot is, as you can see, larger than the previous one. I don't know how many centimeters this has, 6 centimeters. And you need some medium to pot your orchid in. These are epiphyte orchids, which means that they grow in trees, tree trunks, top of rocks. They don't grow inside soil, so we don't pot them in soil because it can suffocate the roots. In this case, the new roots that will be produced. So we need a medium that will provide air, because I need to keep these roots humid, but also with lots of air around it. So I have here sphagnum moss and bark, and I will use sphagnum moss and bark. Also, I use some slow release fertilizer. So I have here sphagnum moss, bark, and some slow release fertilizer to place inside my pot. And that's all that you need. So I will start repotting this orchid with this material. Something very important is I do live in a cool country, so I use much more bark because moss can get very humid in winter time. But if you live in a warmer country, you can use more moss, but I will definitely use more bark than moss. Let's start. So the first layer that I will use in my pot is moss, because moss has some property that works like a fiber. So basically, it can suck the water that there are on the base of my pot and connect with all of the strands of moss and keep evenly moist all around my pot. So that's why I usually use moss on the bottom, and then I have some bark. I'm not going to use a large pot because, again, I live in a cool country and I don't think it helps my plants if I have lots of humidity all the time around the root system. So in winter they can dry very slowly, so I need to be careful with water. But again, that's because of my climate. So we always need to adapt a little bit to our climate, but you can safely place the same amount of moss and bark and check your pot to see if your plant's drying out too quickly or too slow. So let's see if my plant's fit in here already. It already does. So yes. So I'll keep adding bark and moss until my pot is almost full. Now I will add the last layer of moss here, very close to my orchid. And you're always gentle when you're adding the medium as well, because we don't want to break any of our roots, especially if you have, again, a very sick plant. So we can be gentle with it. We add the last strand of moss, and then I will add some beads, just a few beads, like I don't know, 6 beads or of slow release fertilizer. If you live in the UK, I found this one at Wilko. It's pretty affordable. I'll also link the medium that I use here in the UK down below. I'm not earning anything with this, but I think it's very helpful, especially when you're a beginner. I remember looking around a lot and not finding the right material and using spoiled medium and very, very bad quality medium that I need to change all over again. So I will link down below. But yes, and the last layer, I will add some bark. bark's perfect for the last layer because I think it looks nice, avoids the green algae. Sometimes you can have green algae formation on the top, so just to avoid it. I don't really know if it's extremely bad for your plant or not. I like to add some bark as the last layer here. So I'm mimicking a epiphyte environment, not exactly because it's a little bit more humid than what it will be in nature, but that's a way for us to keep our plants potted in our home and having them producing many beautiful flowers year after year. So I do think, yeah, so we have some medium that provides air and also humidity on your pot. So I have my plant potted here. Oops, 1 second. My plant is completely potted. I finished potting it up. The last thing that you have to do is to give it a good watering. So in order to avoid stressing your plant even more, you water it after repotting it, because if you let it completely dry, it may stress even more, because the plant has to adapt to a new medium, to a new pot, and also will be lacking water that will keep it hydrated. So always give your plant a good watering when you finish repotting it. That's what I'm gonna do now. But for now, that's what I want to show you. If you have enjoyed this type of content, please hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and let me know your thoughts about this video and which type of content you'd like to see here. I do have 2 other videos for beginners about Phalaenopsis. I also have a video about some common warning signs that you can find in this orchid. I link everything down below for you, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye!